Okay, we're here. I wanted to show you, you get the hood open. I want to show you a couple of things that would be things that you need. You need some sort of receptacle to be able to get your oil or capture your oil. You're gonna have some oil leaking out from the oil filter when you're underneath the car. And then also you need to know where the drain plug is underneath the car as well. All the oil is gonna fall into this. There's a bunch of different kinds of these that you can use. I actually prefer this one just because it has a little a spout that you can pour the excess oil or the old oil into a different thing and then recycle it at different recycling spots around the your area. So that is a necessity for sure. You can't just use a bucket. It'd be a little bit harder. Make sure you dispose it in some sort of place that actually does recycle the oil. Don't dump it in the ground. Don't dump it in the water supply. Don't do anything like that. That would be terrible. The other thing that you may or may not need, depending on where your oil filter is an oil filter wrench. They're adjustable to certain sizes. As you can see, this would go pretty small. If you put it way out on the outside edge, it would just be for a bigger filter. They're great if you can get access to the oil filter with this. 9 times out of 10, you can't get this up to where the oil filter is. It's a little bit more difficult. If it was a bigger car, like a truck or something like that, you could probably use the filter wrench. But for all practical purposes, like I said in class, I would try to find an oil filter that has some sort of like grip to it, like that Fram filter does, and so you can just grab it with your hands and loosen it. I wouldn't over tighten your filter because then again it's going to be a problem the next time you try to change your oil. But you also want to make sure that your filter is snug and tight when you put the new one back on there, because if you lose your oil filter, you're going to lose all your oil and your engine's going to not run right. Okay, so I also want you to notice that I used a hillside to try to get the car up. So I don't want to jack it up because I just don't really trust jacks sometimes. And if the car rolls off of it and you're underneath the car, there's no space between you and the actual ground. So what I usually try to do is get it like on an angled hill. It gives me plenty enough space up underneath to be able to get up underneath there. It gives me plenty of space to get underneath there. I'm going to take that oil pan up underneath there, and we're going to show you where the oil filter is on the Honda. I also have a movie on Teams that shows you where it is on other cars as well, just like the Jeep. Something I do want to show you real quick is when we check the oil, you want to check and see what kind of oil goes in it. Usually the oil cap tells you exactly what's on it. So this is a 5W20 type SAE oil, which goes in this Honda Accord. I'm going to leave that off, leave it loose a little bit. This is your dipstick. You want to always check that. Something that you should know about your dipstick is that when you look at it, when you have a low oil, okay, and mine's not low, it looks low, but it's not. So there's usually a marking, and sometimes it's etched on there, sometimes it's just 2 holes. So between the low hole and the top hole, this would be full, this would be low. It would be a quart low. So anytime that you see this between the low mark and the high mark, you would add 1 quart of oil, just 1 quart. If you added 2, it would be way too full. You'd have to go back underneath the car, pull the drain plug, and drain at least a quart of oil, which you wouldn't really know what that would be. So just make sure that you always put, most times it's 5 quarts of oil in a car. Some are different, so check your owner's manual to make sure that that's right. And then number 2, if you get it to right here, then you know that you need to add 1 quart of oil. And again, I wouldn't just dump a whole quart in there. I would add like 3 quarters and see where it's at, and then double check it again with the dipstick, and then go back in if you have to add a little bit more just to get it to this full part, then that's what you're gonna do, okay? So we'll put this back in there. Get it back in there. We're gonna leave it out again so that we have a little bit of air that gets back underneath there, okay? We're gonna go underneath, and I'm gonna show you where the oil filter is on this car. Okay, we're underneath the car. I'm gonna show you the oil pan, which is this big, like just pan filled with oil. And at the very back of it, so back towards the back of the car, there's a nut that you want to unscrew. You don't want to do that right now. You also want to make sure that your oil drip pan is underneath that when you do that, because as soon as you take that plug out, it's going to rush out of there, and you want to make sure you're capturing all that oil as much as possible. So back behind this and up underneath in the back part of the engine, you're gonna see the filter, and I need to get a flashlight for that one. So up there, so again, the oil pan's here, right? And then up above that is my oil filter, okay? I usually go back this way to try to get to it, so I can get to it that way. Up underneath this is my rocker arm. And so I could reach up, and as you can tell, it is the textured end on there, so I can easily grab that, unscrew it. Again, make sure your oil drip pan is underneath this, because when you loosen that, it's also going to drain oil down, and so you want to make sure you capture that. I wouldn't do this somewhere where you don't want to have oil all over your inside of your garage. I also wouldn't want to do it somewhere like in a driveway, or a nice driveway you had concreted or something like that. Do it somewhere where it's like maybe in gravel or something, because again, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have some leakage somewhere along the line. Okay, so again, if my suggestion is to always do the frame, or at least anything that has that textured top to it, because it's going to be way easier to grab a hold of. Okay, so you would loosen that first, drain that out, come back down here, do the drain plug. Again, if I can get focused on that, what is that drain plug? Right there. Okay, I believe that is, I'm not sure what that size is, I can't remember, 9/16 or something like that, maybe something like that. So anyway, you're gonna drain all that out, you're gonna put the drain plug back in, you're gonna put the new filter back in, and then you're out from underneath the car for that time.